The Lions have had one of the most impressive seasons so far in the NFL this year. But how did we get here from the back in the days of 0 and 16 and the classic Lions suckage? And how good actually are they? So you have a lot of stats. You are a big Lions fan, and I'm going to be sitting here reacting to those stats and kind of giving my thoughts on the whole situation from the outside looking in, I guess. I root for the Lions by proxy because, you root for the Lions, so I'm always hoping that they win. But yeah, let's dive into some of these stats that you have listed and get to talking about the Lions' super impressive 2024 season.
Yep. So, to kind of really recap how the team has come to be, we've got just the past 4 seasons really to quickly, I'm going to go over them. So 2021, Dan Campbell is hired as the head coach. Alongside him, he was hired after Sheila Hamp took over as the, real one in charge of the decisions in the building. Fired off Matt Patricia, hired in Brad Holmes as a new GM, who has been a just rock star for the team. As with his first draft with the team, he went ahead and he got Amon Ra, he got Penei Sewell, he got Ali McNeil, and then he made the big trade for Jared Goff in the first place to kind of kickstart the whole rebuild with all the draft picks we acquired and such. So that's a big, spot to be in, having as much capital as you have to start off this new regime. And in that new regime, they started off all, pretty rough as they didn't have all their guys in the building. They couldn't organize things to the scheme they wanted, and they were 24th in points per game as an offense. And I do want to note that halfway through the year, Dan Campbell did take over play calling duties. And in the first half of the year, it was a 16.6 point per game. And then second half, it was 21.8 points per game for Dan Campbell being the leader of the offense, and definitely kind of kickstarted their offense just a little bit to make it to 24th instead of bottom of the barrel throughout the league. Now, defensively, that was not the case as they were 31st and allowed 27.5 points per game. So, basically losing by a touchdown or more every week wasn't a great ratio to have there. But, you lose all those games that year, and then you go into the next draft and you have the capital to select Aiden Hutchinson. You get Jamison Williams, you get Kirby Joseph, all staple names for the team as of right now. And you also allocate Ben Johnson, the tight ends coach, to being your offensive coordinator. And Ben Johnson has been a huge part of this team and their success, because with him in 2022, they were 5th in points per game, making a massive jump up to 26.6 points per game. And then 27th on the defensive side, because, you add Hutch, but no real help on the D-line besides Aleem. And then the back end was really just Kirby. Tracy Walker as well, but just kind of a bunch of the old contracts kind of waiting for the checks to clear.
And that was, you were still dealing with Jeff Okudah being there as well,
Yeah.
and investing a super high pick in a corner that just didn't pan out. So that didn't help either.
Still having him. And Jeff Okudah played good because he was a man guy, but we put him press a bunch, and eventually he just stopped being good. The first few games of 2022 basically got sidelined and benched. Going into 2023, they kept up that pace with the offense, and they did that by adding Jahmyr Gibbs. They got David Montgomery after letting Jamal Williams leave. They got Brian Branch and Sam Laporta, which was a enigma of a draft class. We kind of did videos and talked about it at the time. And it all panned out. I was really happy when we got Brian Branch in the second round. I was like, okay, I guess all of the other picks make sense if this is how the board has fallen. But yeah, they kept that pace up. They were 5th again, this time with just a slight bump to 27.1 points per game. Defense also slightly got better as you kind of saw some of those older contracts clear, and you were able to bring in better players for the money that you were way overspending on before because you were the Detroit Lions. No one wanted to go play there. So then they got that slight bump from about 2 points up to 23.2 defensive points allowed. And then we have this season where it's definitely exploded. The draft was a very draft and offseason, very defensive focused. Went ahead and got Marcus Davenport. Sorry about that. Injury kind of sidelined him. DJ Reader we got. He's actually getting play snaps now after starting off injured. Then we got Carlton Davis, we got Ennis Rakestraw in the draft, Terrion Arnold in the draft. Really built up the defense through this past draft because the offense has been completely formed. You know, Amon Ra, Jamo, Jameer, Laporta, like all of these names they've added through this regime alone have panned out for them. And right now, the Lions, after that 52-point showing against the Jags, lead the league with 33.6 points per game, barely squeaking past the Ravens in points per game there. But the defense is the real, star of the show because they are fifth in the league after being 31st, 27th, 22nd. Now they're up to fifth, allowing just 17.7 points per game, which is a whole 6-point difference from the year prior. And it's mostly because of the additions of Terry and Carlton Davis and just really revamping Amik Robertson as well, another corner we added this past offseason. It's really invigorated the defense into how Aaron Glenn likes to run his scheme, how he likes to game plan. He likes running man. And so you need corners to do that, and he hasn't had corners until this point in time.
I have a couple questions. The jump from 22nd to 5th in points, or in defensive points allowed per game. 2023 they allowed 23.2. This year they're allowing 17.7, which is a big jump. Now, is it truly just because they added corners that were good and they hit on those picks and then the additions in the offseason, or is it Aaron Glenn getting better, or is it Brian Branch getting better and Kirby Joseph getting better? Is it the development of players that you've already had, or is it truly the addition of players through free agency in the draft? Because that's something that I'm out of the loop on.
It's definitely a nice combination of both because we got Carlton Davis, who is sorry for the shade that I'm about to slant. Kendall Vildor was one of our starting outside corners last year. Carlton Davis and Terrion Arnold playing those roles right now are just huge improvements there. Ennis Rakestraw, we still have yet to really see much of him because we have Amik Robertson above him and he kind of gets those rotational snaps on those dime packages. Brian Branch, he started off his year electric, playing that nickel corner as a rookie, and then they moved him back to safety, and I think that's been a great part of his development. I mean, you see the interception numbers just skyrocket for him this year versus last. He's able to read quarterbacks' eyes, and he's got the athleticism where he's able to do something about it on every single play. And then Kirby Joseph, I mean, he was kind of almost a day one starter for us, kind of worked himself into the role gradually to be that safety for us. And last year and even in 2022, he was a great safety for us. But it's definitely the combination of him with Brian Branch, I think. Their chemistry is definitely better than I think Kirby and our other safeties have been. They disguise things really well because of Brian Branch's athleticism. And so Kirby Joseph is able to do less at the safety position and produce more because of it, because more can rely on Brian Branch. I don't think we got like the best man corners, but in the draft, I mean, with Ennis and Terrion, you can check out like the combine, the pre-combine, pre-draft videos I did on those, the scouting reports. But Terrion, I think, is good enough in the run game where it's like, okay, he was a team fit because we prioritize stopping that run, and Terrion Arnold's going to play both sides of the offense, be able to stop both of them. So it's definitely a great development of Brian Branch, of Kirby Joseph. And then you combo that with, okay, we have a lot new names in that we can have do various things and that are flexible, basically.
Okay. The other thing that I wanted to say, we've got their upcoming schedule here. I'll probably put it up on the screen above us. But they've won in some of the most convincing fashion that I think anybody has this year. I hate to harken back to the Chiefs because I feel like I dog on them so much for a 9-1 team. But I feel like the Chiefs were sitting at the top of the power rankings in the league as a team that wasn't winning games convincingly at all, and it bothered me. And so now seeing the Lions finally get that recognition of, okay, they are stomping out teams. Like, they are destroying teams. And if they're not destroying you, that's a pretty good sign that you're a good team because you didn't get destroyed. So I don't feel confident in any of the matchups that they have coming up that the other team will be able to put up a good number of points on them and be able to beat them. except maybe the Bills. I think the Bills will be their toughest matchup as they've just beaten the Chiefs, and they are a very impressive team. But even then, I don't think the Lions have a matchup that they can't win for the rest of the year. And I think for me, they're my NFC Super Bowl favorites just because of how consistent, solid, and like complete of a team they are from top to bottom, not just in players that they have, but their coaching staff is extremely good. Both coordinators are great and might have head coaching jobs next year. Dan Campbell's a great people guy, and he gets the locker room bought in. And then the roster has never looked better. And finally, you're seeing Jamo not be suspended or injured, so you're seeing a full season of him and his utilization in this offense. And you're seeing Sam Laporta take kind of a step back, but it's because they're able to utilize a bunch of different players. And then you're seeing Dave Montgomery kind of step into a bigger role than he ever had with the Bears. And you're seeing Jahmyr Gibbs pop off and have some really, really good, impressive performances. And it just kind of is better to have 20 mouths on offense that can score a bunch of points. And then if one of them has a slow game or one of them's a little tired, that's fine. We have literally everybody else that can also produce, and their backups that can also produce.
Yeah. Honestly, as we look at this schedule moving forward, it's like, okay, the Colts showed a lot with Anthony Richardson, and the Lions have, because of the man-to-man coverages they run, struggle against those rushing quarterbacks against Lamar, because you kind of lose sight of your man guy that you're assigned to when you see the quarterback break and contain and looking like he's about to run past the line of scrimmage. So there's a little bit of allowance for that against the Colts, and the Bears are the other primary example of like when that's going to be an issue for them. Looking at the rest of the stretch here, we got 3 primetime games if you count Thanksgiving as a primetime game. 2 Thursday night footballs and 1 Monday night, and the Monday night's against the Niners. So that's going to be a huge game filled with a lot of a feeling of vengeance for the Lions to get back on the 49ers for the last year's NFC Championship. And I think that's a big motivator for them. Of course, you have all of the division matchups here, and they're always motivated for the division matchups. The Bears, I think, aren't. They looked better this past week, but they still didn't squeak out the win. And the Lions are not a team that you expect to squeak out wins. They are winning convincingly, as you said. So I would have them winning almost all of these down the stretch. I feel like it's inevitable they drop one to a division rival. And I would, honestly, if I'm looking at it, I would hope that would be like the Bears on Thanksgiving, because if it's going to happen anywhere and I want them to gain momentum back from it, it's there. Because I don't want them losing the Packers and then going against the Bills. I don't want them losing the Bears and then going against the Niners. And you don't want them losing to the Vikings. Unless, they have the chance to bench some starters for that game or whatever the situation is there. I honestly do think that they can go undefeated down this stretch, but the Bills are the big bad wolf in that situation. But like you said, this is your pick for the championship, the NFC's appearance in the Super Bowl. This is your team. This was my team start of the year because, a little bit of bias and sprinkled in there with that. But let us know what you think down in the comments, because this is definitely, like, to me, super biased brain. Him, slightly biased brain by osmosis. So let us know if you think that they have the hopes that we both are kind of buying into. And, there's definitely the path that I can see them getting to the Super Bowl, and then Aiden Hutchinson's back from injury and Alex Anzalone's back from injury, and that would be a nice little Cinderella story. All the pieces coming together for the Super Bowl. But let us know what you think, and do you have anything else you got to say?
Yeah, just a little bit of an outro for this. Obviously, this is our segment video. We do one of these every single week, so definitely check out the podcast dropping tomorrow in 24 hours, 4 p.m. Central, 3 p.m. Eastern. Nope, 5 p.m. Eastern. I always mix those two up, man. 4 p.m. Central, 5 p.m. Eastern. Check that podcast out and drop some suggestions in the comments for other teams you want us to do a little deep dive like this for. We're going to be going into the Patriots because that's my team. We decided to do Lions first because they just blew out the Jaguars, so it seemed like a pretty good time. And we'll talk about the Patriots and what's going on with them this season. But if there's any teams you want to hear us talk about, dive into, look at some stats for, and the rest of the season outlook for them, or if it's a team like the Patriots where it's not really a rest of the season outlook, it's what are we doing in the off season. We'll do that as well. So just drop some suggestions down in the comments and let us know what you think of this kind of style of I guess recap for certain teams. I'm a big fan of the idea, so let me know if I'm alone in that or if y'all enjoy it as well. And with that, we're going to get back into the standard podcast. Again, full podcast coming out tomorrow, 4 p.m. Central.